Hello, my name is Ashton Strand. I'm 17 years old. This is my sixth year at Northern Waters Environmental School, and this is my 11th ILP. So, for this project, I decided that I wanted to learn about candles, and the reason for that was that, I've always been interested in candles ever since I was a child, mainly with the aspect of making candles. But what I wanted to learn from this project were the spiritual, financial, and historical values of candles. So, for my research, I tried to answer my essential question of how have candles in the candle market evolved over time. And with that essential question, I researched the three aspects that I had mentioned already, but I also learned some information on safety tips for candles and regulations as well, and candle science. So for my product, I obviously made candles, but keep in mind that not a whole lot of my research was dedicated to the art of making them. That was just the only product that made sense to me, and the only product that I really even wanted to do. So as you can see here are some of my supplies. We have my different waxes, soy, paraffin, and beeswax. Um, Beeswax being my favorite out of them because it melted nicely once I finally got it into a candle form. And then paraffin being my least favorite because it's 100% synthetic most of the times. I think this brick specifically was. And I often wonder, since I have respiratory issues, if that does anything to me. Um, and then soy, I kind of liked it. I just want to know if this was the batch that I had that was weird because it didn't melt exactly how I wanted it to. Once I had it in a candle, it took a really long time for it to melt. And then here you can see my different jars and containers that I used, and then my wicks. I found it interesting that the wicks had a hard time staying upright, especially the normal wicks here. And then here you can see some of my oils that I used to give the candles fragrance. And then this is a pre-made packaged candle kit. And I had two others that aren't in this photo, but I just bought those to give me some experience with making candles. And then here you can see my container that I used to melt the wax in. How it worked was I put the wax, one of these, into here, and then I put this into a boiling pot of water because you shouldn't really have your water and candles touching each other directly. And then here you can see a better close-up of some of my waxes. Here is the pre-made kit. As you can see, there's a bunch of just little beads of wax. I found that interesting, and I would love to look into that as an option of making candles in the future. And then here you can see my different waxes that I used melting. Soy, paraffin, and beeswax. And then here you can see my different candles. This was my favorite, even though this one I cut the wick too short, so it doesn't really burn exactly how I want it to. But regardless, I think it looks the best. And yeah, here you can see it solidified and lit. Here you can see it's still forming. And then here was the same kind of candle, just in two different containers. This was the soy. This is the soy candle. And then I added a green candle dye to this one. Oh yeah, and by the way, this is the beeswax one here. And then this was the paraffin candle. This one is nice, actually, but unfortunately it melted way too in on itself. Yeah, and then it actually had this cracking that it started to do, but I think it actually looks kind of cool with the white there. And this one I had to mix with a Christmas candle because it wasn't really bubblegum flavored enough. That's what I used for this candle. So we were hoping that the Christmas candle would help, and it actually did, which was interesting. And then I made two candles with a bunch of different waxes we had, and like almost entirely used up candles. We just took out all the wax and formed it into one. I really have a picture of it here, but those two were like gray, like a light gray, which is pretty cool. Um, but when it was like melting, it was like this black. It looked like kind of like a black hole. It's pretty cool. So, going further into the future, I would love to keep doing this as a hobby and maybe even make some money off of it along the way. Um, if there was anything I would have done differently, I wish I would have known things I knew about making candles now that I wish I would have known earlier. Like with cooling them right away, that's why some of them kind of melted in on themselves, I think. And I would love to have looked into more options of buying materials because Hobby Lobby can be pretty expensive. That's where I got my supplies from. And then when it comes to challenges, probably the cost, like I said before, of making the candles, especially those bricks that I had were pretty expensive. I think the bees one was like $15. So that was probably my biggest challenge. So at this time, I would like to thank all of you for checking in on me with my project, and I would like to open up the floor for questions. Thank you very much.